This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter here on a Jupiter Day Venus hour. Um, Delivering to you a very special reading that I also offer. So, this is an example reading, and this is a reading about eclipses. Um, and with you, I'm going to do the eclipses in your natal chart and the eclipse cycle, and how this eclipse cycle is going to affect you. Okay? And I'm going to alternate between what we call a timing technique that's called Profection. It's a very simple timing technique. It means that every year there is a set of houses that is being highlighted in your chart, and I'm going to combine these two timing techniques of eclipses and Profections so you can see how two people with the same chart in different ages would have a completely different reading when they come to an astrological consultation. So if you are interested in a reading with me, then it is possible. You would have to go to Twitter, where Strudel Sheer, Tali Sheer, which is TALISHEER, okay, Tali Sheer, on Twitter, and you would have to DM me, and we're doing a bit of an exchange where I give you a reading. We get on a conversation. I'm speaking with you on something like a Zoom call, so you know that this is me, and you have a video, you have my face, so you know that I'm the one who's speaking with you, and then you can either buy me a talisman or buy me a course of my choice in exchange for the reading. We're now living in currency turbulent times, and I'm not adhering to social credit scoring as far as I can. So that is how the exchange is being done. And there's an example for my signature reading in another video. You want to check out outer planets to inner planets. This is a particular type of reading for today's episode, where I take a look at your eclipses and your Profection. And without further ado, let's delve right in. So let's say that this very particular chart, okay, was a person coming to me for a reading. Okay? Now, one thing that I would look at before everything, where is Uranus in this chart? And I would look at Placidus housing, because this technique works for Placidus. And Uranus here, bless him, is right on the 7th and 8th. So this tells me Uranus signifies astrology. This is it's not an old, it's a technique by Nicolas Stoyanovich. This is Nicolas Stoyanovich, who was a brilliant astrologer. And the technique goes Uranus in your chart, okay? In here, if I look at it with Placidus housing, it's right on the 7th, 8th. So that means that person is coming to me for a reading to do with either their relationship or fiscal or energy conflicts with their significant other or business partner. Okay? Either some trauma that affects their relationship, or even trauma in the relationship. Maybe they're considering divorce because Uranus in the 7th is the planet of divorce, and they want to kind of spread their assets, and they kind of look to me and they want to get an astrological insight. Now, of course, I'm not a life insurance consultant, nor am I a relational consultant as a therapist or a psychologist. But what can I offer as an astrologer? And let's give this two perfected houses. I'm going to randomly choose them. I'm not going to look at the chart. I'm going to say one Profection is going to be a 10th house Profection for this person. And another Profection is going to be 3rd house Profection for this person. Okay? Not even the 7th and 8th. I'm going to make it even more detailed so you can get more meat out of it. So let's say this is the 10th Profection. And Profection, I don't look at Placidus, I look at whole sign houses. 10th house for this chart is Cancer. That's ruled by the moon, with the moon in the 6th whole sign house. Okay, so the ruler of the 10th is in the 6th. And that tells me that this year, for this person, The 10th house, which is relationship with one of the parents, being a parent, getting a promotion at work, your public profile, okay, your image in the world, relationship with your bosses, all of that, and legacy, because we have the midheaven here, all of that is highlighted for you, as well as the 6th house, which is you of service to the world, bringing a baby to the world. As Catherine Urban mentioned, the connection between the 6th house and the actual act of labor, because it's not only the 8th house, which is your birth, but also the 6th. Okay, 5th house is your first child, but 6th house is the actual labor. It's also labor as you working, or if you have employees. For that, for the ruler of the 10th in the 6th, can either mean that you are your own boss, that you work with your father, your mother. It's a business that has to do with the family. The 6th house is also pets, by the way. So granted that your boss is not your pet. It also means that the work that you do, your service to the world, is very connected to your public image. 6th house is also a house of enemy. So your boss and even your parent can be a rival. Okay? And this doesn't necessarily mean something incredibly malefic. It can simply mean that, let's say, you have a family business and then you branch out into your venture in the same field, and you're competing with each other, but it doesn't have to be malefic. Competition is good for the market. It can bring abundance to both businesses. So although with here it might be working for a different corporation or whatnot. That means for what is a 10th house. So right now, 6th house, the house of your health, enemies, work, and pets, and labor, and the house that is the 10th house is being activated. But this is not the end of it, because this house is Pisces, and we have Saturn here. What does Saturn rule in your chart? It rules your 5th house, whole sign speaking, this is Aquarius, and your 4th house. Now we get a holistic picture. It means that the issues of work, children, home, and health are accentuated. Maybe you're having a baby. So now the working relations between you and your boss, or you as a boss, change. That affects your health. Okay? Because 5th house is also babies or a creative project, and it grows your family. It's a big transformation to your home, and then maybe you have to have a bigger house. Okay? So now we're getting an even bigger picture of another thing, another signature of the time. Okay? Now it can be, for example, if you bring in this Uranus together, you're getting a divorce, and we'll need to see what month is perfected, because perfection year, let's say on your birthday, the month of your birthday, the 10th house is perfected. Okay, wonderful. It's a it's a 10-10. Yeah, then the next month after your birthday, you're still with the emphasis on the 10th, but now the 11th house is perfected. Okay, so issues come up in the 11th, and so on and so forth. There are also perfections from the moon, which is what you are trying to achieve this year, but that will be a deeper perfection reading. And so if we bring it all together, you came to me for some sort of relational advice to do with energy and assets, and you are on the move. So let's say perhaps you are divorcing and you need to spread your assets, but you're actually pregnant when you divorce, or you have a child together, and that changes your position, because now you're going to have to have more responsibility, maybe have shared custody. So you need to change the house. Both of you need to change the house to adapt for the child. And that kind of really affects, you have to tend to that, and it really affects first of all, your health, and also maybe you have even a shared pet together, alongside with, maybe children, maybe pets, and now you have all these things that you're tending to. Okay, depending on what would be these things, we can think about what's troubling you and what creative solution we can bring. Uranus calls for liberation. Okay, so whether it is a divorce or revolutionizing the way you do shared assets with your significant partner, whether it's business, whether it's relationship. Okay, it requires perhaps for an update of the technology. One of the things, I have Uranus in the third house, which is business, and one of the things that I've been thinking about is developing a sort of a portal or an application where the money comes into this application and the application automatically sends the dividends to the accounts of the people involved in the project. So we have something that just takes the money in and divides the money accordingly to every one of the people who is involved in the joint venture or in the company or in the business, in a way that makes it more reliable to do joint ventures with people, and makes it more efficient. We don't have to have an account that it's entering to, and then there can be financial violence around this. Okay, so you might be thinking about something similar. Maybe I want to develop an app where any of the joint assets are into this app and divided, let's say 50-50, but then maybe you have arguments, you want to divide it differently, and the use of technology in managing your assets and maybe trust and funds that you have, that your money is in, and adding the technological component to it. Okay, so you might be rethinking the technology in your business, partnership, and marriage. So the joint of these energy. Uranus is also astrology, so it can be, I have these issues of energies, and maybe you and your partner have some energy breaching, okay, unusual relationships with energy, kind of feel each other's energy and this, and there's some wonderful things about it, and then some things that affect your health, okay, the sixth house, okay, affect the way you look in the world, because your energy, you're having random energy kind of being thrown out there into the public image, and you're kind of thinking, okay, what shall I do about this? So we take a look at Uranus, and that would already mean that you're one of the couples that are bringing the spirit of the times in regards to joint assets and energy. Okay, now they know what's energy. Now you might be able to speak about problems you have as a couple, maybe with willing consent. How do you have willing consent when you have energy sex? And you want to be able to enjoy that even when you're not in the same room, and it can allow for space in the relationship, Uranus to be space, and shared intimacy across space. But then you also want to make sure that you both want it, that you're not getting so mixed with the energy that it confuses you, it doesn't throw you off balance. It's not the communication that you have when you're physically in the room and you can speak with each other. But then there can be telepathy, there can be clairsentience, there can be claircognizance, and so on and so forth. So you might be one of these couples that bring this into the public sphere, and maybe you're even working in talking about these things, especially now with Venus in your 11th house. And that's just before we even entered eclipses. Okay, so this is one very particular Profection year for you, where already we have an outer planet role here. Okay, and outer planets to inner planets are my signature reading, but I already give you, if I look at Uranus, I already give you what Uranus is doing in your chart. And right now it is quasi-trining Mercury retrograde, okay, here in the 12th house. So your bedroom might be very affected by it, okay, or there are certain addictions that maybe the way you spend money or your joint assets or what you invest in is kind of underlined by certain addictions or stresses or traumas that undergovern these addictions, okay. Now this is already a planet, if that was your natal chart, Mercury trining Uranus is a part of the spirit of the time, but here it is in the 12th and in the 8th. Okay, you're going to be one of the people that are bringing in a revolution in occult science, in the way we see energy, in it can also be organized crime, like I'm honest, um, or the way we see hospitals, hospitalization, mental health, which is also 12th house. For example, the ability to inherit money and to decide on your will in regards to your supposedly, sanity and ability to dictate something. Okay? Maybe you're dealing with some conflicts that revolutionize the way we think about the person's ability to sign a will. Okay? Those are all things that can happen. Now, if I speak with you, it's much easier to have your input, and I know how you enter this. And then I can be more particular with you. When I'm giving it like this, it's like I'm shooting in the air. But if that was you, you would tell me, Shirley, I don't know what's this energy thing you're talking about, but this is what we have with this joint assets that we experience. And yes, we have a child and a pet together, and now there's a housing crisis, but we're divorcing, and we're trying to kind of like move into separate houses and make it, and now I know where to focus, where to hone in. And it can be that midway into the reading, you're going to tell you, Shirley, you know what? You said something about energy. You said something about energy. Now that I think about it, every time I come to withdraw cash or do something with my credit card, I feel like almost the hand pulling it or trying to make me either not do it or do something else. I'm like, I don't know, you think that my husband? I say, I don't know. But this is definitely something you deal with in energy. Okay? They're like, why? I thought in the first time going crazy. I was like, no, this is energy. You're finding your power in that very merged identity. And of course, the first unusual suspect that might be operating here is your partner. It doesn't mean that they volitionally try to control your movement. It can mean that there's a certain amount of telepathy between you that you feel it like I come to make a purchase and I feel like a voice says don't do it or do it, or oh my god, and that is basically you're both thinking together and kind of living as one without necessarily somebody intending to control or intending harm. Can be like a telepathy that you have within you. You're like, oh my gosh, is that a thing? It's like, absolutely, that's a thing. Okay, those are the type of things that can happen to you during a reading. Now let's go to eclipses. And let's say this is your natal chart and your transit. Let's make it simple. I'm going to make it a bit more complicated later. So your ascendant is with Ketu, the tail of the dragon, and your descendant, which is that significant other partner, with Rahu, the head of the dragon. What does it mean to have Rahu and Ketu in your first and seventh house? Okay? It means that you used to be a person that lived for themselves. It not necessarily mean you're narcissistic. You could be a person that did not find a partner, or that had some life quest that had to do, or maybe you were a public figure, because the ruler of your Ketu is in the 11th. Maybe you were some public figure in past life or somewhere, your soul has been there, and you were alone. Okay, maybe you were a guru and a teacher and you couldn't marry. And now you actually are heading towards a partnership. Okay, your soul has not been either in marriage or business partnership that is one-on-one. You haven't been there. You've been more secluded. Okay? And that can mean that throughout your life you may have had several attempts to have a relationship that were not coming close to actually have a relationship that's working for you. Okay, one famous example with Rahu in the 7th is Lada Duncheva, and I turn you to Lada Duncheva's channel. If you do have Rahu in your 7th whole sign house or 7th house, she could be a great personal teacher for you, because she has this, she dealt with that, and she's in her 3rd marriage prospering. Okay, so that might be that relational teachings. And this can also mean that if Rahu is with the ruler of the seventh. Okay, so for me, Rahu is in the fourth house, but it's ruled by Mercury, which also rules the seventh. So it's kind of like the same story. I was not married, but I had all these like ups and downs with one-to-one relations were transforming my life because I have an outer planet connected to that. It's Pluto opposite this Mercury, and I have a Chiron there, which means like before age 50 I can only do so much, and then I have like a big open door that I can go through and shed a lot of grief and perhaps come renewed. And so that means that for you, relationship is something that's going to come into fruition later in life. It doesn't mean that you won't be married. It doesn't mean that you won't have wonderful relationships. It just means that you're not used to being in two, okay? You used to being secluded, and now your soul is coming to learn the wisdom of being in a relationship. If I think about, I hope she's not mad at me for taking her as an example. And if I think about Lada Duncheva, she had these tremendous teachings of relationships, of synastry astrology. And the minute she did astrology, she basically delved into her third marriage. And fabulous, all kinds of teachings about relationships. And those teachings are very spiritual. So if maybe in the past she was, I don't know, some spiritual guru that lived in seclusion, and in this life she also lived in like the United States for a while and had less kind of like friends outside of media, but further on in her life she's still a spiritual guru, she's still a spiritual teacher, she's still very interested in those esoterics that nobody talks about even within the astrological communities. But now she's married, now she has these relational teachings, now she has this living in intimacy, living in the family, how to improve upon your relationships, and it's she's still doing her life role, but now she's taking it to the seventh. It's beyond the fact that it took 3 marriages for her to be happy in a marriage, but she also has a spiritual teaching to share. Okay, so for you it might be a very similar case, but the ruler of your Rahu is in the sign of Ketu, Mars. Mars, the ruler for your heading, is in the sign of Ketu. And that kind of creates a Zen-like experience where you're going forward to go backwards, okay? And this is very much relevant in relationship, because one of the greatest relational teachers, when you're actually trying to have a partner, maybe in the past you were some monk on a hill, and now you're like, okay, let's try to do relationships. And you find out that to do relationships, you actually have to go back to yourself. Okay? To be in a healthy relationship, you actually have to go back to yourself. Okay? I can think of an example. For example, let's say you have a partner who is a bit lit romantic. Okay? They fall in love, and then they fall in love, and then they make love, and then they're no longer attracted, then they go away, they break up, and then they think, oh my God, why did I break up with this person? I'm in love with them, and then they fall in love. So this is lit romantic, okay? It's called, they're lit romantic. And then a partner that wants to be monogamous with them and wants to love them, but this partner, they have to learn that they have to be centered in themselves, their psychological needs. And as this partner is going into the and saying, I want to have this orgasm in that way, I want to have these jewels, I want to have that food, oh, I wish my partner catered to me. That lit romantic partner is coming to them like a moth to a flame. But they constantly have to do this. They constantly, every day they have to go back, and maybe they have a teaching there. Okay? Maybe they have, no, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say it. Maybe they have the ruler of the Rahu in the 5th house, okay? Maybe they have something to do with the moon, maybe the moon with Saturn or something. And they need to learn in this life to concentrate more on their pleasure a bit, to concentrate more on what they like, what they desire, to be catered to a bit, and they need to learn this. So these two people, this lit romantic person and this person that really needs to learn to go out, to express, to desire, to manifest their desires, they're becoming, they're attracted like moth to a flame. Because for the person who is with like the moony person, then they are, the minute that they meet their own needs, or that they self-pleasure, or that they manifest, or that they take time for themselves, or that they tend to their inner child, somebody comes in. Actually, I've had it. I have an out-of-bound moon in the 5th house in conjuncting Uranus. And so it's a moon in Cancer, but I had to learn how to tend to my child needs. And then as I began to kind of satisfy myself psychologically, whether with hugging myself or so, I noticed that I'm not alone. Okay? And every time you go back to yourself, this other person who could be inconsistent otherwise, they are attracted to you like moth to a flame. But then you have an encounter, and then you need to spate. You need to separate, because you continuously need to go back to yourself. Okay? This combination of the ruler of the 7th, that's ruling Rahu, in the 1st, tells me that the key to establish healthy relationships in your life and healthy energy form is to go back to you. And that's on you, okay? Is to go back to you. And you're gonna have to do it continuously, okay? And this is a skill that you need to develop, of being in your body. Mars here ruling the 2nd house of Scorpio. Here's a psychological skill that you need to develop, of being in your body. And then the more you're developing this skill along your life, the more you'll be able to have intimacy with another person. Okay? So that could be one great example. On the one hand, it's your teaching to learn how to be in relationships. On the other hand, to learn how to be in relationship is to learn how to be with yourself. Then you draw it in, but also return to yourself. Okay? And you're going to have this back and forth until you develop this skill. Now let's talk about eclipses. It means that right now, for you, you're having a nodal return. That means it's very likely that a relationship is going to come into your life where you are being called to develop this skill again. Okay? This is a time where you're going to address these issues. And those issues may have to do with finances and values. Maybe somebody really, really likes you, but they have a different set of values than you. You still have to set your boundaries. Okay, Mars here, you have to stand for your ground, but also your values may change. You're letting go of certain values. You're kind of letting yourself go here. But letting yourself go, not in a bad way. Okay? You're letting yourself go. You're letting the old values that you held go. You're learning the old perceptions of your body. This could be actually a time where you're purging any sort of issue that you've had with your body image. Okay? So you could be going through this cycle now. And the nodal return means it's a pivotal point in your life. Once in 18 years, you address this axis of yours in a way that is fundamentally changing the way you see, do, and experience one-to-one relations. Okay? Perhaps for you, you're finally thinking about having children, growing children, or maybe you will meet someone and you will have a child with them, with all of those, and however you are along the side of those skills. And that is going to affect your career. That is going to affect your colleagues. Yes, you could have some enmities, or it's going to affect your health, your body, or you could even be purging. Maybe you have purging off issues regarding to body issues, and then you are being more strategic and dedicated to your physical well-being. Saturn in the 6th going retrograde, and maybe you tend to your feet with Pisces, feet and legs, and the structure of the bones or the skin, and you find out that you're releasing yourself from something. Now you're able to have a baby. Okay, now you're fertile and you're able to have conceive a baby. Or now you're able to raise a pet. Maybe you wanted to have a pet, okay, but you couldn't care for a pet, and now you feel like you have more energy that you can do this. Or maybe you want to have a horse. Okay, it's a Jupiter animal. You want to have a horse, and or you buy a horse with your partner. Maybe you have, you know, this asset, you buy it with your partner. Now you can actually maintain it, and now you need a farm for the horse. So now you can actually make that purchase. And it all began with purging issues you had with you, between you and you. Okay? Wake up in the morning and looking at the mirror and saying, oh, what a beauty. Rather than, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. And that made space for energy that meets with another energy with relative ease now. Okay? Rahu in the 7th can natally can indicate a chronic difficulty with being codependent. Okay? Unlike when this is just a transit, if this was just a transit and it was not like a natal thing, then I would say to you, in the past, in this eclipse cycle, you may feel or experience things that are similar to things that people who are codependent deal with. My best suggestion to you in this case is, yes, study about codependence, make the necessary changes that you need to make, but also know that this will be over in about 2 years. And then you will be tending more to issues to do with work, with health, your pets, enemies at work, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't mean that you have like a chronic issue of being codependent. It's just like a phase like this, because right now Ketu is in your first house. It means that you are at the other person, and you have to kind of fight to get yourself back, and fight because Mars, okay, Mars is in your first. You kind of have to fight to get yourself back. If that was just a transit, it's just the spirit of the times. You got into some relations that their boundaries were mixed, and neither of you is to blame. This is the equation. You have to kind of assert yourself. So this is a bit like a lesson in learning to assert yourself during this time, but also know this will be over. Because you have it natally, there's some chronicle thing. It's a chronicle thing that you will have to slowly, little by little, master the skill. You will always have the dependency to be at the partners and then go back to yourself and kind of play like a ping pong that you feel less in control of, and you don't know how to operate this ping pong correctly. Okay? That's an issue now. If we accept that that's something that has the potential to be chronicle, okay? We constantly discover new things in life. But it also means that once you sort this out, so you're going to find it in a business merge. Once you sort this out, you're going to find it on a political level, because the 7th house is political, okay? It means that you will constantly be dredging up these issues and resolving them one by one, because it's a chronicle thing. And whenever the eclipse cycle is going to hit on this axis, you either have a nodal opposition or nodal return. 9 years from now, you're going to have a nodal opposition with Rahu in your first house. It means that this is the time we're going to call back on your energy. You're going to be calling back on all your energy. Okay? And when you're calling back on all your energy, it means that the part where to be in a relationship, I have to be with myself happy and have to marry myself. You might be having a ceremony of marrying yourself. Okay? 9 years from now. Now you're more like, okay, I'm learning not to be a lonely bird. I'm learning to communicate. And then you have the tendency to either be fully overthrown or to try to avoid relational stuff because you're guarded and so on and so forth. But this is a ping pong that you're meant to learn. You're meant to practice this. Okay? Bringing it all together, particularly the issues of sharing assets and sharing energies, is something that you're dealing with in this ping pong of your relational, one-to-one style. And that is very much affecting and being affected, or that is very much coming up together with having to tend to your career, and your health, and whether you want to have children, whether you have some gambling issues that you're dealing with, or maybe you gamble for a job if it's the sixth house, um, or children or creative projects, and growing your own house or your estate. You could be working for a real estate company that is owned by a family, and now you're having this partner stuff coming up, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening, and this is happening. Okay, now according to you, we will see. So what do we do? So certain things we can do is just accept that is something that you're dealing with, that the seventh and first axis is something that your soul came here to learn. This means that from the cradle to the grave, those issues are gonna come up in different dresses. They're gonna be a partner, they're gonna be a business partner, they're gonna be political rivalry or political allies. Okay, doesn't mean you don't have to be a country leader. You might be delving into mundane politics or mundane astrology even. And that is going to continuously come up. Okay, you dealt with sharing finances, now you're sharing energy. You dealt with sharing energy, now you're talking about the will and the consent and so on. You're down with that. You're talking about bringing a child into the world, and growing this child and so on and so forth. This is constantly coming up. This issue is constantly coming up. You were sent here to learn about this issue. You're sent here and you also sent here probably to have a teaching. Okay, it might not be that you're a guru or spiritual teacher, but it can also mean that you have value to offer to other people dealing with that. Okay, with Uranus, whenever it comes to joint assets, joint energy, birth giving, technology and birth, technology and joint assets, willing consent, and the way we review our ability to consent when we write a will, so intergenerational wealth, redistribution of intergenerational wealth, something there is coming up for you, and different things are going to continue to come up for you. Okay, when you understand that this is your agency in the world is to change these things, now you get why these things are happening to you, why they keep happening to me, why everybody seems to have, some people are happy in a marriage, some people are unhappy, but they're like, okay, we're okay, and I keep having this thing to do, and once we're done with the marriage, now it's with the assets, and now we're done with the assets, now it's with this, and I'm like, why do I keep having this? Because this is the axis. This is the axis for you. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have fulfillment. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have good experience. Other way around, you're hungry for good experiences and you're going to have them. But it also means that you came here to desire and discover that once you have this desire, it solves only a part of your problems, and yet you still came here to experience the desire. That is the teaching of Rahu, basically, the head of the dragon. So those things are happening in your chart. That will also mean you have natal Aries with your descendant. It means that your partner is kind of an agent provocateur. But because the ruler is with you, so you might have an aspect of this, or your partnership came here to advance humanity, and sometimes through crisis, and that can be also between you two. So, yeah, this is eclipses. And now I said, let's pick another house. Same reading, but with the third house profection year. Okay, so for Uranus, you still came for something that is on the border of your relations and the joint energies and assets and timelines and ancestors that you have, or siblings even. That's the Uranus. That's the, either you're thinking about a divorce, or you're thinking about bringing technology in, or bringing astrology in to this question. Now your third house is perfected. Your third house is ruled by Jupiter, so there's nothing in the third, less components. Jupiter is in your eighth house. Now look what happened. It's a completely different reading. Your third house can be your business, your siblings, your daily routines. Daily routines kind of like brushing your teeth or taking a shower, but also religious practice that you do daily, bureaucracy errands that you do daily, your neighborhood and your neighbors, as well as certain skills that you acquire, kind of like elementary education or communication. The ruler in the eighth house means that those issues are going through trauma and transformation. Okay, the other side of trauma is wisdom. They're going through crisis. Everyone's that, while that's triggered in your life, that means that right now, this year, it's not unlikely that you will have a crisis, and this crisis will affect your daily routines, your neighbors, and it can affect your whole sign speaking eighth house. It can affect your joint assets with your partner. Okay, you get what I'm saying? You get how I combine Placidus and whole sign. So it can affect your joint assets with your partner. It can affect the energy levels that you share with your partner. It can affect intergenerational wealth and its redistribution. And that can be many, 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 many things. But bringing it all together, definitely there's a very big emphasis on your seventh and eighth houses this year, and your siblings are involved, okay, or your neighbors are involved, or your neighborhood is involved, or even when you take a shower, you can't take a shower without thinking about this. Okay, so for you, my friend, it means that Jupiter is making a certain crisis grow, so that your ideas of anything related to the way your lineages come together, okay, the way your lineages come together. You may have lineages, your neighborhood is somehow connected to you, maybe you're living in a tribe even, not because of the Aquarius, but because your worldview has to do with your neighbors. So your neighbors is kind of like, it's either a religious place or it's an ideological kind of neighborhood. And the ruler in your eighth house, so it can be like an occult or even a cult. But in some other cases, it can mean that you're living in kind of like a tribal life, and you are most affected by the lineage traumatically. Okay, eighth house is a crisis house. Okay, there's a certain trauma, there's certain crisis that can also be financial, and from this crisis you have a new worldview, or sometimes a new technology, new innovation, and with Uranus, a certain type of liberation. You might be of the people who will do intergenerational wealth differently to your tribe, okay, or to your neighbors or to your siblings. Okay. Uranus, there is also the thought of the end of life, especially in here. So things like assisted suicide for terminally ill people, the consent around, inheritances. See, some things do repeat themselves, but here is not so much that ping pong, that lifelong ping pong. Here is more, you came to bring revolutionary ideas regarding wealth and energy on an intergenerational level and their distribution. Okay, and what you're asking me is kind of like, well, I have this juncture with my partner that we're about to join our assets and so on and so forth. I don't want it to be like what used to be in my family or what used to be in my tribe. There's all these things dredging up in me, And me and my partner talking about opening a joint bank account, and I thinking about my grandfather that was not even able to buy themselves soup because my grandmother would kind of like control of the assets, and she was, I don't know, old money. It was her family's money. Nobody knew what's going with the money, and he married up, but he didn't enjoy the money, and she was so controlling him financially. But he liked her for other reasons, and it's all coming to dredge. It's dredging up, and I'm like, I don't want to live like that with my partner. I don't want to live like that with my partner. So while I cannot give you the solution, I can definitely say that yes, it is such that you are in the spirit of the time. You are an agent that brings in awareness to the certain losses, because Mercury here is connecting with this Uranus. It's an outer planet to inner planet. It's also my signature reading. And you bring in more awareness, and you revolutionize the way that you manage your inheritance, which is the wealth that you have in connection to somebody's dying or somebody's loss. 12th house, inevitable loss. Okay, somebody dies, it's inevitable loss. 8th house is the wealth, joint wealth. Okay, so inheritance. So you do wills differently, you do inheritance differently. It can be that there is some sort of a litigation or some way that you're straying from the tribe. That's going to create provocations for you. And indeed, you still have this Rahu Ketu, you still have that ping pong Rahu Ketu thingy going on. But for you, what's accentuated, it's not so much your public image or like the sixth house. The sixth house, yes, because Jupiter rules it, and oh yeah, it's just from different places. It is because Jupiter rules also Pisces, which is your sixth house, and the moon is there as ruling the 10th. But let's say we didn't have this connection, so it would not be so public life, but more about your inner tribal life, where you could be a bit of a castaway or choosing part. If you think about Harry and Meghan, I think that they were kind of choosing to opt out of the family because they didn't want to do it like the old way. They wanted to live life for themselves, and they were too constrained, so they liberated something. You could be one of those cases with this third house perfection. Okay, you see how it's coming at with this particular chart. The 10 and the 3rd are related, but let's say they weren't. Let's say it was not Pisces. Let's say, I don't know, we had another ascendant, had a Scorpio ascendant, then it would already be different, will already change the entire composture. Okay, and as to your nodes and eclipses, yes, the 1st and 7th is still accentuated for you, and it's still, if it's, let's say it's your natal chart that you have in a nodal return. So everything I said about that ping pong is relevant to you, but now the context is more like, I'm learning to do marriage in a way different than my tribe, and I have to innovate there because 7th house is Aries, and now the emphasis on you innovating with your partner in regarding to wills and or assisted death and stuff like that. So it can come from the 10th, and it can come from the 3rd, but those are two different readings. Okay, in the first one, your boss, you as a parent, your public life are going to be very much accentuated along with that first 7 ping pong. In the 3rd house perfection, something is going to happen, maybe something with your neighbor or your sibling or your surroundings, and that would be the first thing that you think about when you say, well, I don't want to do it like my elders. Okay, especially that Jupiter is activated. I don't want to do it like my elders. But here you think about the religion, the tradition, the worldview, and with the 10th house, it's more indirect. You're more thinking about the patterns of relating, the caregiving, the relations to your father and mother, or to the head of the tribe, but not amongst the siblings, because more like, well, there was this rabbi or there was this chief, and I have a conflictual relationship with this person. And no, I don't adhere to everything they say. I'm not going to vote for what they tell me to vote because I don't think that is right for me. It doesn't cover the case for my partner and my family. Or for the 3rd house, it's not necessarily going to be directly that. It's going to be, let's say this person did give a certain order, but you kind of look at it and you're thinking, no, I'm not going to do I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses on that. Okay? So you see the difference? I'm not going to follow what the rabbi said. I'm not going to follow what the priest said. We got to innovate because we need to be addressed here. It's us that's doing this marriage, not our rabbi. And in the third house, it's going to be, I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses. It's us that's doing this marriage, not our neighbors and siblings. My brother is not in bed with you. Your sister is not in bed with me. You're not supposed to be. Okay? We got to do this differently. Okay? I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses versus I'm not going to do what the rabbi said, what the imam says, what my mama, my father says. Okay? And those are particular different angles that really affect the way that you experience and react to this transition. Now, it can be, let's say, depending on the ascendant of your partner, that they are dealing with something different, but while you're dealing with, I'm not going to keep up with the rabbi, the other person is, I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses. And let's say you do keep up with the Joneses. You do want the car that your nachbarn buys. You do want to keep up with it. And your partner's like, I can't stand that. Stop thinking about what will the neighbor say. I can't stand that. How come you agree with me that we shouldn't follow the rabbi, but you follow all these people that follow the rabbi? Oh, come on, this is so annoying. Okay? Or you could be having this, I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses. I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses. And if you follow, let's say, this rabbi, and your partner's like, you're not keeping up with the Joneses, it's okay. I don't see a problem with the fact that my nachbarn bought a new car, and I want a new car. Maybe they have like a Uranus opposition. It's kind of like, I want a new car. I want a Ferrari. They bought a Ferrari. I want a Ferrari. Why not? They're going to either, well, you didn't say anything when they were saying we were going to a vacation. We're going to summer somewhere. You say, I want a summer somewhere too. Hey, you didn't think that was bad, but now when I'm getting a Ferrari, you got a problem. But then whatever the rabbi say, you do. Whatever the imam says, you do. Okay, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. How come you're going to vote for this thing? What about me? What about me? What about our resources together? You're going to vote for the same political party that your rabbi tells you, but that affects my wealth. That affects what I have to give to you when I die. That affects the taxation. Okay? It's those arguments from a different angle. This is what Profection does. It gives you a highlight. It's another neural network that's being triggered at any given time. Now you say, next year, what's going to come up for you next year? So next year is going to be the 11th house. Same eclipse cycle, but let's say your birthday is in November. Fine. You're still going to be in this ping pong, but now your 11th house is going to be triggered. Okay, and let's say we were in November. Okay, so I would read the same chart with the sun in the 12th. Now you're in this situation where by transit, okay, it's just this month, but for this month, for your birthday, for your solar return, well, you have a sun in the 12th natally, if that's the case, and the ruler of your 11th is in the 12th. It can be that you're publicly known as that person that was hospitalized, that was in jail, or that is secluded, and those issues come up. Those dredgy, yucky stuff come up, and they are to do with one of your parents. Okay, maybe one of your parents was the outcast and said, I want to be like my parent, but you grow up being just like them. Oh, damn, now I'm castrated for that. Okay, whether it was your father or your mother. So, but what else is in there? There's Venus there, and Venus is ruling your 8th house. And of course, you came to ask me about the 8th house. Of course, Venus is ruling your 8th house, right? Because Uranus is in your 8th house. In between the 7th and 8th, if we talk about the Placidus, which is the technique from which I took, the context which I took this technique from. So, now your 8th house is lit, and your 1st house is lit too, in the 11th. But you experience loss there. You're publicly isolated. It's so fucking annoying. Okay? That comes up again. And that's a trauma that you have ancestrally. Whoa, time to do some ancestral stuff. Now I asked Michelle, when is this going to end? I said it, and I tell you, listen. Right now, we have Venus in your 11th. It's not going to be up there forever. Okay? That being said, Venus is ruling your ascendant and is ruling the 8th house. Okay, So those issues every once in a while around the Venus synodic cycles, they're going to come up. Whenever something crosses blue is going to come up, and eclipses are very much affecting this issue in your life because your sun is in the 12th and your sun is affected by what? Eclipses and lunations. So whenever that thing comes up, it's another episode, it's another chapter in this episode. And that for you means that you unravel something that takes a very long while to unravel. Having an outer planet there means that you have a revolutionary role here, but also need to surrender something that is very difficult to surrender, which is your shine. Okay? And so whenever you work immediately with this, it's also about finding out what that means for you to have these experiences, finding the meaning in all of this, and sometimes it's the meaning itself that you surrender. Okay? For some, with Venus now in the 11th, you might be more outspoken, you might be acting. In Israel right now, I saw two completely different parties, and the parliament members were acting against the type of bullying where people don't speak to a person, don't speak to a child. Okay? One was right wing, one was left wing. There's something very interesting that's happening there. So you might be taking some active role in speaking up for those people who had these experiences, and be outspoken. Maybe that's on your agenda. Maybe something to do with legislation or leading or performance that accentuates these things. Or in your case, it can be people who have been outcast from also the generational wealth of the family. Yeah? And then what do? Maybe we litigate. Maybe we use some technology. Maybe you do ideological hacking into the old money that your family has. And then you're kind of like, well, this is an agenda. They did not cast me out for any just reason, and I do not deserve to be without resources. I'm going to hack into their account. I'm going to steal the money. It's something that can happen. And of course, that can land you in jail. But you say, I'm going to do civil disobedience, and I'm going to do this ideological hacking. I'm going to show that it's possible. Now, many people are going to do that. And they're going to change the rules. They're going to have to find a solution for us. Those issues, okay? You see, different house, different story. And still, the 1st and 7th is being triggered for you. Okay, if Leo is in your 11th, still, this eclipse cycle, you're still dealing with you and your partner, except that you are having this public image status, and your partner is kind of like more into you. Maybe they find you attractive because you talk about these things. Maybe they find it sexy, especially with Aries here. They find it sexy if you do ideological hacking and end up in jail. They find it sexy that you did that. Okay, really can't have sex with you, but they find you more attractive. So it's those things. It's those things. Now let's make it a bit more complex. And let's say your natal eclipse cycle is in, let's take, the ascendant has changed. So let's take the current chart. And now the ascendant is Scorpio. So let's say your natal eclipse axis is in the 2nd and 8th. You have Ketu in the 8th and Rahu in the 2nd. Okay? That's what your natal axis. It means that learning how to make your own income or be your own boss or develop your own skill is something that you meant to grow in this life. You might be trying different venues, different ventures, different businesses. And those businesses, because Jupiter here is in the 7th house, are going to be with your partner. It also means that Uranus here is in the Placidus 7th house, so not the Placidus 8th anymore. So what you came to ask me is about relations. Oh, I like this partner. We have a business together that we're going to go for. I think it will be a hit, but I had a couple of fallouts with this, love and business, and is it the thing? Then normally you would say, love and marriage is problem, but love and marriage and business, even bigger problem. But if I see that in general, the ruler of your second is in your seventh, you're gonna be making income with a partner. So you're gonna be doing that, okay? And it's going to take a bit of trial and error to see how to do that. Can this partner be a marriage partner? It's very likely so. Especially if you come to me as a cisgender woman and you like a cisgender man, then this can be a husband. Okay? And Jupiter in Taurus, so it can be a banker, it can be a singer, it can be somebody you have some business with. And so for you, love and marriage and business are very much involved in a far deeper way. But because you have Rahu in the second, choosing the partner, understanding this connection between the wealth that you have together and the fact that your partner is your asset and you are the asset for your partner, how do you mingle this in a way that's actually supportive and nourishing is a thing you will have to learn. Or choosing the business, and when your worldview changes, your values change, the partner can change as well. And along the eclipse cycles of Gemini and Sagittarius, you're going to have significant changes to both your worldview, because it's Sagittarius, and your investment portfolio or joint assets with a partner, and the business that you're making or what you're growing. Okay, whether it's the same business or different businesses, you could have it be changing partners as well. Now, the eclipse cycle of the Aries and Libra is going through your 12th and 6th house. So right now what's being accentuated for you is the holistic aspect of health. How your job relates to it, how the experience you have around giving birth relates to it, how your physical activities relate to your mental state and are affected by your mental state. Okay, and that is a Venus-Mars thing. So with 6th house Aries, you might like to be active. You're very physically active, or you're innovative, or you're working in something to do with innovation in mental health, because the Mars here is ruling the 12th, is in the 12th. The ruler of the 6th is in the 12th. Now this axis is being accentuated. So maybe now your innovations have to do with mental health. So maybe how to use physical fitness, or the form, and the form of your body when you work out affects your mental health and is affected by it. So how to improve your mental health by doing physical exercise. Okay, keeping the shape and the form in a good way. Now maybe you're innovating something in that regard. It also can be the case that you are purging a certain, you're rejuvenating your view of mental health. Okay, that's a part of your innovation, of what you do for a living, and you're constantly dealing with that for the coming 2 years. Okay? Now, since that happens for you, and if this is your job, okay, then of course your values change, and of course the partner that you're with can change. And you're telling me, Shirley, you know what? You're right. I came here because I'm contemplating divorce. And I say to you, with Uranus as usual, take space before you sever ties, because Uranus is about space. Okay, when you take space, sometimes you can think of other things. Also, you brought an astrologer into your marriage, so astrology can say, okay, something is changing for you, but maybe we want to take space and we want to find what is the essence. If your relationship is not abusive, if there is some essential value, because you know that these changes are going to happen for you. Some of them are fated, some of them are not. And you say, but I want to live with one partner. Okay, in those various things, and for you I would need a deeper reading, because I would have to now ask you, what are the type of ventures that you've been in? And we can go by the years and by the eclipse cycles and I can see that you might have had different ideas. Why? Because your values, your partner, your income, and your expenses are affected by eclipses. Okay? And now I'm going to try and find with you how can you do something where you can alternate your services, your products, your topics, and have this great divergence, and have a partner that's accommodating for that great divergence as possible. And you begin to realize that sometimes you need more space. Maybe sometimes you want to open the relationship, sometimes you want to close it. And that is an example that will come up for you. And we're gonna have to find the core things, what's going to allow you to do that. Uranus is going through your seventh, not forever. If this is your natal chart, Uranus is in your seventh, okay? So astrology of partnership can be a good thing for you. Maybe you should look more into it, okay? Technology that assists mergers and acquisitions and severing ties in terms of partnership, that can be a good venue for you. You could build something, especially with Jupiter coming to Uranus. Oh my God. And when you set your mind to it, you're going to find a partner that fits that. Oh, now it's a core issue of this Uranus in your seventh that you can kind of have branches off of. Okay, there are variations on the canon. And now the partner that's up to it is the one that will stay with you. You don't have to have a divorce. Okay? Unless it's something like really malefic happening in your marriage, you don't have to separate, you have to innovate. Okay? And this innovation is by the merit of this natal Uranus. You don't expect to have the traditional marriage, with kind of like 2 Goldens and 3 kids, and there's something different happening in your 7th house. You don't have traditional partners, you don't have traditional marriage. Don't try to force that. I would say concentrate on meeting your emotional needs, look into your moon, make sure that you are satisfied in the connection, that your love language. And here with Leo, you like to be publicly claimed, you like to be, maybe having a kind of like a daddy mommy thingy, but daddy more like it. Yeah, go for it, but make sure that your needs are met. You're sacrificing your needs, and then build up from there. Because what are the things that you want for yourself, and then what are the things that you can completely liberate yourself from the constraints of, because Taurus is a fixed sign. You don't have to live in the same house, you don't have to live in the same country, but then you are of the couples that come, this is an outer planet to inner planets, my signature reading. You as a couple come to bring a certain revolution to the world of merger and acquisitions, partnerships, even political relations. Maybe you come from different countries, and that thing is going to really be a part of a revolutionary and inspirational point in your community, in your society, okay, and even in your home. If we talk about Aquarius as associated with Uranus, then your home is really going to have a different type of home than Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, so those are the variations on the canon, and you can see how from Eclipses plus Profection we got 3 completely different readings, and when we added an alternating eclipse cycle, then we already have here a very intense reading that is covering both your life cycle and the spirit of the times, and gives you both evergreen advice and also very temporary relevant advice that is also needed. So this is also a reading that you can get with me. My Twitter is Strudel Talisher, which is TALISHEER on Twitter. You can DM me for a reading. This means we go up on like a Zoom call or something. You recognize my face and you can scroll. You can subscribe to me and scroll down the videos. I have videos where you see my face. Okay, when you see my face, then online, the way we do it is I give you a reading and you purchase either a talisman or a course. And those like the longer readings, and this one is absolutely something that can qualify for a longer reading. If I add the outer planets and inner planets, it's my signature reading. And that is going to be, talisman is going to be around $355. And courses between $300 to $400, like the rectification course by Patrick Watson and Chris Brennan, kind of things that really gonna make me give a lot more value. And the reason we do this is because we are currently in changing times and commerce is very weird. The good thing that I can get is like if I can get one thing that I actually do want that can actually improve upon my life, like a talisman or like a course, then I can offer you a reading in favor, and we can make this exchange kind of working for us. And you get a reading, you get an astrological reading. So this is one possibility. If you want to have a shorter reading, okay, then we are going to address, they're probably going to address it from either your Profection or the Uranus or something combined. And that is kind of like a 30 minutes reading, and you can make like 2 30 minutes readings. And for every one reading like this, then I would want a talisman of either sphere and sundry. And the talismans that are good for me are Venus talismans. For sphere and sundry, I'm not going to go for the moon just yet. But definitely Venus talismans, any type of Venus talisman is supposed to be okay. Fixed stars talismans are supposed to be great. Okay, whether it's Regulus, to some degree Fomalhaut. I think that this is what they had, and now working on Hygeia or something like that. Saturn, although I love Saturn, is my malefic out of sex, so Saturn talismans are less preferred for me, and Jupiter, although I'm ruled by Jupiter, are also less preferred. Mercury is okay. I already have the Dorky subset, or you can have like a Mercury Virgo. A lot of things to choose from. Another vendor that I can purchase from is Christopher Chow. Okay, I live in Israel. That means that the shipping is going to be to Israel, so it is covering up the shipping. And so the talismans themselves is like 10 milliliters or half an ounce. They're between $50 to $70. And the shipping, I think, is $20 with Christopher, and I would like his Venus in Pisces. And for Sphere and Sundry, it is shipping. So that means that it's at least $40 shipping. So that means it's around $100. Okay? Just saying. And that is for like the shorter readings. If you want kind of a meet and in between, okay, kind of like you do want an hour reading, but you're not gonna delve into all that, like all that stuff. You have a question, it's a bit complicated. You want an hour, you want to spend an hour with me on your chart, but that's it, okay? Because for the longer readings, I don't look at the clock, and if I have to go somewhere, we're gonna talk again. Okay, you're not gonna spend $400 and not get service. It's definitely, I mean, I have to be very cautious with my words because we are in eclipse cycles. That's weird, but as far as I can, attain to that, without any natural disasters and anything, then I'm going to spend my time with you. Okay, so that's the thing. But if you say, I want an hour with you on my chart, there are several questions I have, but this is what I want. And then a good solve by Sphere and Sundry, and a solve of any of the planetary spheres that I mentioned, it's a good solve, can absolutely and with the shipping to Israel can absolutely be sufficient for such reading. And that's the way it goes. Okay, we talk, you see that this is my face online, and make the purchase. I give you the reading, and I give you the address to send that to. So that is the way that I operate, and the way that I can offer a service that is worthwhile and receive compensation that I find good, even in times of changing economy. Okay, so yes, thank you for watching. This is another reading example that you can receive from me, and of course you add into that the fact that you are speaking. So it takes time, okay, because I don't just go out and speak for an hour, and you understand I'm a talkative person, but I'm listening to you, and then what I have to say is way more accurate and precise, and also you get the time to express yourself here because you came here for you. So this is why we have an hour and a half, and I give like 3 readings. No, it's not 3 readings, because you actually talk in the reading, and I don't get that much talk. I get that much to listen to you and to say something clear and concise. And that thing. Now, let's say you ordered a 60 minutes reading, and you ordered me the talisman, and you're like, oh, but I want something more, but I don't have the money. It's like, if it's a couple of minutes, I'm not good. Yeah, I'm Israeli, okay? I'm not German. I'm half Dutch, but this is where my Israeli comes out, and I'm not going to be with you like on the minute. You do have to understand that I'm living in a country that has a religious revolution right now, that we are having constant all kinds of like warfare stuff going on. So that means that if I have to cancel, or if you have to cancel, we are being like we're being legit on that. So only when we actually get to talk do you make the purchase, and online I tell you where to send, and I give you the reading. So I'm also quite flexible in ways that other people can't, because they have to compensate for their time and they have reports to file. And so that allows me to be more flexible with you. And as a neurodivergent person, I need this flexibility, and I give this flexibility. So this is another signature thing to me as an astrologer. Yeah, other options for compensation. If you do get your hands on a copy of Austin Kopek's 36 Phases, the new edition, when it comes out, and you send it to me, then of course you get one of those readings where I don't look at the clock, because that is, just because of the effort. Like, even if it's not that expensive, the book itself, and I don't ask you to buy me like a hard copy expensive stuff, you can basically order it and email it to me or something like that. But because it's going to require for you to kind of like catch it on the spot, and for the effort, then you are being compensated if that's the case. That's it. When it comes to Christopher Warnock's talismans, I do know that he has sales every once in a while. If you catch a sale and you let me know, you make sure you get the okay from me, because to make sure I don't already have this. If you catch a sale, you let me know. We catch this sale on time, then let's say it's $100 less, and I gave you a reading that's like no looking at the watch. It's okay, it's okay, because for the effort that you made to do that trade stunt, you get compensated. So that's it. Have a great day.